What's up YouTube? Mike the Manic Geek here, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Antec P70. This is a new ATX mid-tower that Antec has released that is designed with silence in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and get a PC built up in this, and while I take care of that, I'll go ahead and give you guys a tour around the inside of the case and show you what makes this thing tick. Starting with the exterior, we have a very Spartan and monolithic look, with only a very subtle Antec logo across the bottom of the front flat face and 3 expansion slots for your optical drive bays, with a power and activity light that glows blue. The front panel is easily removed and reveals room for 2 extra 120mm fans should you so desire, and includes some very nice dust filtering to help keep the interior of your case nice and dust-free. Front I/O includes power and reset switches, 2 USB 3.0 ports, headphone and mic jacks, as well as 3 3-position fan speed controllers, which are zone-oriented. The roof also contains 2 supplied 120mm fans, which can easily be accessed by unlocking and removing the roof panel, and the fans have some nice cable routing up here as well. Now, should you decide that you don't want to use the roof fan accommodations, Antec does supply a roof blanking plate, which will help add a little bit of extra silence to the case, as well as clean up the roof and leave it looking like nothing was ever supposed to be there in the first place. Rear I/O is a typical affair with external water cooling openings, room for a 120mm fan, 7 PCI Express slots, some additional case venting, and a bottom-mounted power supply area. Now, unfortunately, there aren't any captive thumb screws on this case, so please do be careful when you remove them. The bottom of the case has 4 case feet, which have little rubber pads on them to keep it planted, as well as easily accessible dust filtering for your power supply. Now, moving into the interior of the case, we see that once again things are very Spartan in here. And even though there's no cable grommets, there's not really a big deal with that because there's not really a window on this case in the first place. Now, moving around to the motherboard tray, and a better look at the supplied rear 120mm fan, we see that there's ample room for supplying aftermarket heatsinks. And the optical drive bays do have some nice toolless implementation on them. Very nice touch. The hard drive cage up front will supply room for up to 4 3.5-inch hard drives, as well as 1 2.5-inch hard or solid state drive. Moving around back, we see that there are plenty of cable tie points to keep everything nice, tidy, and organized. But really the star of the show back here is not the cable ties, it's the cables themselves. They are all black and they are all flat. Antec, on behalf of every PC enthusiast out there, we thank you. Thank you for black cables. Now, it doesn't appear as though there's a whole lot of room for cable management at all back here, but the bulges in the side panel do a really good job of supplying plenty of space for that. Now, as far as building a system, you get supplied the baggy O screws, some twist ties, some very lacking documentation, as well as some hard drive sleds which are clearly labeled and come with little rubber stoppers to help dampen the vibration of your hard drives. Alright, so here we are with a completed build in this case. I did go ahead and use an Antec Cooler H2O 950 CPU cooler to sort of demonstrate an ideal cooling scenario when building with this system. Now, unfortunately, there isn't enough room in the roof to house a standard thickness 240mm radiator. By that I mean the 27 to 30mm depth. So yeah, you're kind of stuck with thick radiator solutions like the H80i or any of the Cooler Master sourced solutions that are out there, or Antec's own line of H2O coolers. Now, that's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, realistically, this case is not really marketed towards a high-end enthusiast. But some of the features that they offer with this case are actually kind of surprising given its pricing bracket. For starters, the fan speed controller on the top. When I saw the 3 switches, I was honestly expecting there to just be 3 fan headers. When I saw that there was enough fan headers to control every single fan in the case, and that they were clearly identified so that you knew exactly where to plug them in, well, that's something that you don't even see on higher-end cases, like the Graphite 760Ts that me and my fiance use. That has built-in fan speed control, but it only has it for up to 4 fans, and it's one button that controls all of the fans simultaneously. With this implementation, you have total system control over how much air is flowing into and out of your case at any given time, which also allows you to more effectively control case pressure to help keep some more of that dust out, which is a really nice touch. The side panels are incredibly rigid. That's another thing that I wasn't really expecting here. Normally, when you're looking at a case that's as cheap as this one is, you're expecting there to be some sort of compromise somewhere, and the stamping that was done on those side panels was not an area of compromise. What was a slight area of compromise was the construction of the case itself, which doesn't use particularly thick steel, so when the side panels are off, you may notice that the case flexes significantly more than you would like, but with everything put together, it's not going anywhere. Your hardware inside will be fine. As far as the roof fan accommodations are concerned, I am a fan of, see what I did there? I am a fan of placement of your fans. I'm also a fan of the fact that they allow you to block off the roof panel up here, as I have done in my particular build, to allow you to get a little bit more silence out of this case. I wish they would have given you the option to cover just one or just the other fan opening to give you a little bit more flexibility, because that's really what's allowing cases to stand out on the market anymore is modularity and flexibility. Now, as for actual cable management in the build, cable management went off without a hitch. Matter of fact, it went fairly well. I was pretty impressed with how well cables stayed routed in this case, and despite the fact that there is a complete lack of space for cable management in the back, the bulge in the side panel is placed exactly where it needs to be to allow you to get all of your cables routed and managed without there being any sort of huge clustered mess in the back. And here I'll go ahead and show you guys what I managed with the cable management in this case. Now, what you guys will notice, those of you who are keen-eyed enough, is that I just used the supplied twist ties that came with this case. Not only the ones that came in the accessory bag, but also the ones that secured some of the other devices into the case or kept the cables organized for shipping. I used exactly what was supplied, and all of the cables were routed nice and clean and tidy and out of the way, and that's the point. Twist ties are perfect for managing cables in a case like this, since if you're going with a less expensive case, I imagine you're trying to not spend money wherever you can. And if you can avoid having to spend any money on needing to go out and buy more zip ties, so much the better. Not to mention the fact that using twist ties actually helps you arrange the cables more where you actually want them to go and gives just that little bit of wiggle room so that they're secured in place, but when it comes time to run maintenance on the computer or you need to swap out bits of hardware, it's not going to be so difficult to get everything removed. The fans that are supplied with the case, they're good. They supply a pretty good amount of airflow running at full speed, and they're not glaringly loud, although a little bit louder than I would have preferred. Now, when they undervolt and you run them on the low speed setting for the fan speed controller up here, they're almost dead silent. The only issue that I had with my fans, and your user experience may vary here, is that there was a bit of a chattery noise that comes from the bearings when they're undervolted. Just tells me that the particular bearings are not a fan of having their supplied power turned down. But you know, the problem with that is that these fans at lower speeds don't really move a whole lot of air, and up front you're dealing with a lot of restricted space up here. So it would have been nice to have these be able to move air a little bit more effectively through a constricted space like that. Now, the other critique that I have regarding the fans is the fact that when you mount fans in this case, you're only using 2 screws to mount them because there's these weird little knobs that sit in place of where a fan screw opening might normally be. They're used, as near as I can figure, to act as a guide, to accurately position the fans exactly where they should be going. And the same goes in the roof of the case here as well. It's not a horrible implementation, it's just a little odd, because I wasn't really anticipating that, and I've never really seen that in any other case that I've taken a look at before. And it doesn't really do anything to add any noise to the case. There's no extra vibrations that are transmitted through the case. And trust me, as thin as the sheet metal is on this, you would know the second there was a vibrating anything inside your case. So that's not really an issue. The drive sleds here are pretty basic. They're nothing really to write home about, but the problem that I had is the rubber vibration dampers that you're supposed to insert in these. There's no documentation that explains to a first-time system builder that you're supposed to put them there. I just happened to sort of put 2 and 2 together, and there you go. But someone that's a bit less experienced might find that a little confusing. Antec has assured me that moving forward, they'll be changing the annotation in their builders and their documentation that comes with this to reference where these rubber stoppers are supposed to go. But in the meantime, I'm here to tell you those little rubber rings peel off and go inside the drive sleds to help reduce vibration on your hard drives. Now, probably the biggest glaring issue that I have with this case is rear I/O for the PCI Express slots. They're still using stamped steel outlets for this case. I am not a fan of this at all, especially given that this case retails at a starting MSRP of $70 through their website, and even mentions that on Newegg. Now granted, the case is typically on sale for about $60, but even still, stamped steel PCI Express port covers, that I just can't even. I just can't even. Now, the other problem that arises from stamped steel PCI Express brackets is the fact that the openings where you would put the fasteners to secure a graphics adapter or some other form of I/O back here for an expansion card, these outlets are not pre-threaded. Now, this is a result of the stamping process that's used to make this case. They're unable to add in tooling to provide threads for that opening. So what you have to do, and this is straight from Antec, is you have to use the screws that look like they would go for a power supply, like they have the broader head on them, and they have the sort of gnarled grip on the inside of the head of the fastener. And you have to apply them very gently and very carefully so that they thread correctly into the opening. That is definitely intimidating for a first-time system builder, and even I thought that I was just going to wind up stripping out the screw when I started applying the fasteners. Thankfully, everything went in without a hitch, and once you move past that, that's really the only unenjoyable aspect of building in this case, is dealing with these PCI Express brackets back here. But other than that, you look at the case as a whole, and, you know, it's on sale on Newegg for $60 right now, $40 after the mail-in rebate. It might not be the most quiet case out there. I mean, realistically, even the sound dampening that they put on the inside is kind of an afterthought kind of thing. It's basically just this thick sticker that applies in the shape of the stamp that's on each of the side panels. And it doesn't really do a whole lot of anything. Matter of fact, sealing the roof does more for keeping the case quiet than the side panels really do. But if you get a nice selection of quiet hardware to put inside this case, and you keep the budget in line with how much this case costs, you know, you could very easily fit a decent single card gaming system in this, or use this as like a home server, use it for building a small, well, not actually small, but a reasonably low powered home theater computer with some spare parts that you've got. Realistically, I think Antec has a really good idea with this case. And I think further revisions of it will see more of this idea come to fruition as the market will bear a case like this that retains this price without sacrificing on things like build quality and how the features are implemented on the case. But it's got really good I/O on it. It's got great fan speed control. That's honestly, that alone is worth it for this case. The fact that it gives you that kind of fan speed control that's zone oriented and that is ample enough for every fan opening in the case, that's something I haven't even seen in cases that cost easily 3 times as much as this one. So definitely kudos to Antec for that one. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for this case. So this was the Antec P70, guys. Again, ATX mid-tower from Antec. You can find it on sale on Newegg for about $40 after the rebate. You know, it's not going to bring home any awards, and it's not anything flashy. But sometimes you don't want flash. Sometimes you just need it to work, and sometimes you need it to be visually and audibly quiet. And this case definitely ticks all the right boxes in those categories. So I can definitely recommend this for a build in the future, even despite the issues that they have going on with the rear I/O. I'm really hoping that future revisions will see that corrected. But as it stands right now, for a case that's this cheap, you're going to be hard-pressed to find something much better. Guys, this has been Mike the Manic Geek. Do that thumbs up, thumbs down thing like you do. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Share the video with your friends, your family, your loved ones. If you liked it and you think they'll like it too, or if you just want to force all of your hobbies onto them without giving them a choice, that works too, because the more people see, the better. But yeah, until next time, guys, take it easy.